to get jealous of other women if they look better than them physically. Yeah, that could be true. I mean, women can be a little bit catty. So, since we got Jeremy here, what's his thoughts on the streamers that really can hold bodybuilding back as a whole as a sport to get mainstream?
It's never going to be mainstream,
Mhm.
no matter what you do. It just simply will not. I mean, the closest that you had to mainstream was back in the '80s, back 40 years ago. Because it's just like, who was it that was saying it? I guess Warrior was saying it. Is it that was where it had its golden age? Was during the '80s, and that was where you had, just like he said, ESPN regularly covered the national level shows. Women, Miss International, Miss Olympia were regularly covered by them. Linda Murray was doing the commentary on some of those shows for ESPN. And then also, like he said, you had that back in the day. One of the main, most popular media sources were talk shows, and women bodybuilders were on talk shows all the time then. And then also, in addition to ESPN covering the shows, you had American Muscle Magazine, which regularly featured women bodybuilders. And then in the print magazines and the muscle mags, you had women bodybuilders on the covers of many of those magazines and talked about many of those magazines. Hold on just 1 second.
Mhm. Give me a second. We got here a comment from a man. Shout out to my man Warrior. Says people know who Dalen Bailey is. She's ridiculously famous because she utilized the sport as a stepping stone to generate recognition for herself and publicity. Same thing like Kai Green did. They both did that. Also, he says CBum popularity is something that the women's bodybuilding division needs to match or surpass in order to bring awareness to a more grand scale. And the thing is, Christine Baum is like the outlier. I think someone that might compare to back in the day who had a lot of popularity and mainstream attention in bodybuilding is Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the one person. Or you can't forget also Lou Ferrigno. Anytime when we talk about, if you ask anybody, if you know of name some bodybuilders, those are the two they will pop in their head because Arnold, he was the
Reference
Terminator, he
point.
was Conan, people remember Lou as the Incredible Hulk. What you say, big brother?
It's basically, those are the guys who pioneered, and so those are the guys who, when you're talking about somebody, and a reference point. So the biggest reference point is Arnold. The biggest reference point is Lou Ferrigno because those are recognizable names. Like I told you, I did a poll in the gym, and asked a bunch of young group because I live in a college town. I'm like, hey, have you ever had Andrew Shaw? No. Have you ever heard of Sid Goodman? No. Have you ever heard of Derek Lundqvist at the time, who was a champion? No. Everybody came back to one name, C-Bum, which is crazy because I don't see a lot of stuff that he does, and maybe because I don't follow him like that. But everybody knows who he is. The younger generation knows who C-Bum is. I don't know if it's because of that damn brand of clothes that he wears or whatever.
I didn't even
Because
know who he
everybody in the gym
was.
wears that shit. Everybody in my gym wears that. All the young kids wearing Gymshark. Gymshark gear. I'm like, shit, I should have invested that shit a long time ago. But C-Bomb, and guess what? He just retired. So that's not going to help. That's not helping us none whatsoever because now he's retired. So again, the question is, how do we get society in general to be able to, and like Jeremy said, bodybuilding in itself, the whole picture of itself is never going to be mainstream. It's never. I mean, so we're talking about women. We're talking about the sport. Like I said, I went up to people and was like, "Hey, do you know what this person is?" No, 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 no. And my reference point. Well, what do you do? Bodybuilding? What is that? Powerlifting? No, it's the guys who wear little hammock shorts. And this is what I say. What Arnold used to do. Not even Lou Ferrigno. What Arnold. So then they start getting a better understanding. So yeah, Jeremy is absolutely right. I don't think in a whole this sport's ever going to be mainstream because IFBB and the NPC are not doing enough to make it mainstream. It's more, and the crazy thing is, it's an international sport.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to do their due diligence. Jake Woods and the Jim Manions and the Tylers and the Steves, to make it, if it's ever going to make it mainstream, they have to be the ones to do it because they're the ones who control everything. You can have a million shows like Tamer. The last show I was at, he's like, we have over 200 shows throughout the country, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, bodybuilders may know that, but the rest of the world don't know that because the rest of the world don't follow the sport unless you're in the heart of it or you're a fan of it. They don't know about it. And there's a lot of people who just don't know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless you're somebody who's related to somebody who's a bodybuilder,
Yeah.
like who's either your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mom, your dad, cousin, a co-worker. You support them,
And I can attest to that because when I got into the sport, I had no idea about anything about bodybuilding because I was a football and track guy and a basketball guy. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I even told somebody this today. I said, if I would have known, and I've said this before, if I would have known what I know now, I probably would have never competed. Because, I look at, we're talking about subjective sports, bodybuilding, diving, ice skating, gymnastics, where you have judges. They're supposed to have a certain criteria that they're judging off of, but it's so subjective and so controversial year in, year out. I would have never did it. When I ran track, like I said, I came across the finish line, I won. Last night, the Chiefs, who barely winning football games, winning by 2 points, block field goal. But at the end of the day, that scoreboard says 17-19, they win the game. In this sport, because it's so subjective, it's hard for me as a competitive athlete who came from other sports that was well more ran and well more organized, and the rules were the rules. It's hard for me to swallow and accept sometimes what happens in the sport. Let's just say that.
Even like in mainstream sports, people complain about mainstream sports. With there was somebody was talking about Anthony Edwards. He was comparing Michael Jordan to the players of today. If Michael Jordan was in this era, he wouldn't do as good as he did before, or other NBA players. So, but in terms of bodybuilding, like, like that C-bump thing that you said, I didn't know who he was till you mentioned it. So, I think, like the ones I recognize is Lee Haney and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dorian Yates, and stuff like that, but it don't pop up like that. I know I'm just rambling, but
yeah. But think about it. Think about it, KL. If you're saying that, how hard is it for people to recognize women's bodybuilding? If supposedly the mainstream and so they say the ticket, the people who bring in the money is men's bodybuilding. That's what they say. If that's what they say, then how who knows who Andrea Shaw is? Who knows who Kim Krzyzewski is? Who knows who Iris Kyle was, for that matter? Who knows who any of these women is? If you can't even recognize the main part of it, which is men's bodybuilding, who can recognize? Shit, I don't even know who the bikini champion is, for Christ's sake, to be honest, or the wellness champion for that matter. Because you have to follow those things. And I'm sure if you ask a bikini girl, she would know. If you ask a wellness girl, they would know. But again, those numbers are in such big groves and they make so much money. That's why Wolfpack's not stupid. You're going to put your money where you know that you're going to get the most recognition, and that's bikini, wellness, men's physique, men's classic physique, are the ones that are really dominating and controlling our sport right now. As far as what avenue from the amateur level is drawing the numbers to the pro level. And that's why those classes are so big at the Olympia. And that's why they're the biggest classes.
To tell you the truth, like I was going to say something real quick. Tell you the truth, I started recognizing these women through social media. If they have social media, if you would have mentioned Andrea Shaw, I wouldn't know who Andrea Shaw is. It's like other platforms. Like I first seen her like on DD on the Spot. So it was, and it's the funny thing is, I started jumping into social media, a bodybuilder that through Tina Lockwood. I wasn't too crazy about like, like going into like Facebook or Instagram, but the just knowing who she was at the time, and like her, even like the mystery of her like not being in the sport, it had a curiosity. So what I'm trying to say is she was like the gateway of me going to on social media. So
yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to make it less extreme, I mean, there are three things you do. I mean, they're certainly not going to be popular with me, and they're probably not other people here. If you want to make it less extreme, or you want to get more people involved, here are the three things that you do. Number one, eliminate every single division other than bikini. Wipe out every single one. Two, like you said, Keith, the IFBB and the NPC need to put a massive PR campaign
Absolutely.
going on, and they need to be plastering it on social media, and especially social media, as well as they need to start promoting things or buying time for TV, radio, ads, that sort of thing. And let's see, what would be the third one? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember offhand, but if you want to make it less extreme, then that's what you got to do. But the thing is, they're not going to do that. They're not going to waste the time because, and I've said it here, I keep hammering this point home. What does everybody associate with bodybuilding?
PDs.
Yep. And that's exactly why they don't try to advertise it. They understand that with more popularity means increased scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And they don't want the public in general to see just how much gear usage there is. That is in every single division, including bikini. They don't want that. They want to keep their own little fiefdom where they have total control over everything that is going on. Because with greater popularity means the people get more involved, but it also adds to increased scrutiny as to how things are exactly done.
Yeah,
and they don't want that.
And that's why, and remember at one point in time, The Rock, who wanted in, and it's weird because, you would see The Rock pop up at, Bear Francis gym. You see him pop up in pictures with Steve all the time. Shaquille's at every Olympia. So you have people that are on TV. You have people with money that can probably, there's big fans. Every year at the Olympia, they have the honorary, I think Shaq has been in for a couple years. The Rock has been there, baseball players, wrestlers, and all this other stuff have been there, But again, they don't use those sources for anything. They don't, somebody's like, oh, The Rock, what they say, The Rock would have ruined it if he would have bought it over Jake or whatever case would be. I call bullshit. The Rock just started the UFS United Football League that's starting again this season. Has a Under Armour behind him, has the networks behind him and all this other stuff. So how would that hurt when you already have a guy in the know who knows how to run a system? I love Jake. He's just a guy with a lot of fucking money, who has guys telling him what to do versus a guy who's already in the industry, like a Kevin Hart, like a Rock, like a like a Shaquille O'Neal, that's what they do on a regular basis. They're in the entertainment business of TV, movies, things like that. Instead of a guy who just has money and can throw money at I'm not trying to disrespect Jake by any means, but throw money at something saying, okay, we can make this work, this, that, and other. You have guys sitting there with a plan saying, if you really want to make this the way we want to make it, and The Rock understands he'll never compete with the NFL, but you have to have a secondary, plan after the NFL season's over because people still like watching football. That's what he came up with the USFL, because you have a bunch of guys who didn't make teams that people still want to watch and people still want to follow, and they still watch it, and that's why it's still going strong to this day. But again, we all know that in essence, the IFBB and the NPC, like Jeremy just said, is focused on their little niche thing. And that's why it'll never be mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing is that it's like bodybuilding is its own little world. And like I said, even though it's a small community, it's a community that kind of cross, into a bit of the mainstream. Like you said again, even I saw was a picture from this year's Olympia where Shannon Sharp was hanging with Linda and Lee Haney. He did an interview with Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman's been even on Joe Rogan's podcast. Here we have here a comment from a man Warrior 2000. Shout out to Warriors. No, sorry, Buddy J 2024. He says, Yisha Ayaya, the gorgeous wellness Latina chick, is the only one I follow on IG. She's freaking beautiful. Also, he says, Aisha does modeling, catwalk shows, and audience love her physique. Each year she does it, but she's not been competing in a while. She's not as active. She's more active in the modeling world. She is as a competitor. Win Physique has to be careful not to stream because they will go down the road that Women's Bodybuilding did. Be canceled too, because if you saw, I know I sent a link to my big brother here, that they already put out partially the list for this upcoming season. I saw that some shows dropped Women's Physique. We did a thing. We talked about how the Triple O Dynasty is not having this year because they don't have no promoters to promote Women's Physique. My big brother, he competed at the Legion, and one of the ladies who competed that show were interviewed the day before. That's Sergeant Yvonne Pennington. She was, she posted that the Legion is not going to have Women's Physique for next year, and
add with St. Louis Pro to that list too.
Yeah, St. Louis Pro.
It's gone there too.
Yeah. And it's just that remember what happened with Women's Bodybuilding, where it was getting kicked out. Got kicked out of the Olympic, got kicked out of the Arnold. Shows were so few and far between. And Jake came along, and he gave it a second chance where everybody else was really much, putting daggers in his back. Again, about the thing about steroids and PEDs, I follow a competitor. His name is Paul Barnett. Paul is the coach, IFP Pro. And he talks about this, what he uses when he's getting ready and getting prepped for competition. He's going to pull it up here.
Experimenting with EQ, equipoise, because I wanted to try to get my appetite up. Here's the problems I run into with equipoise. My hematocrit, hemoglobin, and red blood cell count get really high on equipoise. I don't have that issue with other PEDs as much as I do with equipoise. Even Anadrol doesn't seem to raise it as high as equipoise does. Equipoise is known for raising appetite, so if you have an issue with appetite, equipoise does increase appetite, so maybe it's not the best choice for cutting. I have noticed that equipoise seems to lower my estradiol more strongly than Primobolan does. They both do tend to bring down estradiol, but I have seen that Primobolan doesn't seem to be as harsh on estradiol as equipoise is, at least in my experience. I have been experimenting with EQ, equipoise, because I wanted to try to get my appetite up. Here's the problems I run into with equipoise. My hematocrit, hemoglobin, and red blood cell count get really high.
That is got a problem.
Hello?
Yes, I don't hear it either.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, it gets back to what we were talking about, anabolic steroids. When people look up equipoise, do you know what they're going to find? That this was originally used in horses.
Horses. Yep.
That's why it's called equipoise.
Yeah.
As in equestrians.
Yeah.
That's why when you see there on the cover for it that it's a horse.
Yeah.
That's the reason why.
Yeah.
It's because, and when people look that up, it's like, and then Also, maybe this is off topic, but I look at stuff like this when I see this online. I just got to ask myself, do people want to go to prison?
Yeah.
Do they want to go to the damn penitentiary?
Yeah.
Are they like banging on the door saying, "Please let me in, clear out a cell. I will walk in, no problem whatsoever." I look at this and I'm like, where did you get the idea that talking about this thoroughly illegal practice online was perfectly okay?
And bringing negative attention to the sport.
Right, exactly. It's like see people. Oh, what are you taking? Oh, well, I'm taking this, that, and the other. It's like, did it ever occur to you that someone might forward that video to the authorities and say, "Hey," and say, "Hey, is this essentially a confession to a crime?" Which is, I understand that it is. It's like I look at this and I'm like, and the same thing. It's like when we were talking about Kenny KO when he does his natty or not thing. And he talks to the people and they say, "Oh, of course nobody's natural. Of course everybody's on gear." It's like, what? You're saying this in front of upwards of 1 million people. And it's like, do you think that maybe someone in 100 million people might forward that to the DEA? And say, "Hey guys, you might want to take a look at this"? I just look at this and it's like, this is fucking crazy. It's nuts how many people are setting themselves up like this. It just drives me crazy.
It's just like the negative tension when I played in the league, and Toradol was a big thing about painkillers. Like, guys were to take shots and still playing games, and I was one of them. You know, the NFL was like, "Okay, enough of this shit. We're not talking about it. You're not, you'll get fined, or you might not be on the team anymore." You know, because they don't want to understand the shit that it takes to play, the physical sport that we play and the shit that we go through as players. It's a fucking lot, and that's the bottom line. But they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. And it's told, keep your fucking mouth shut. Here's the funny thing. When I was with Nike, when I first signed with Nike as a track athlete, all their shoes were being made in Indonesia. Do you know what Nike sent to every athlete that they were sponsored by? And they sent you a thing, like, these are the questions that you're going to ask. Like, how do you think about a third world country making your shoes? And Nike said, if you answered the questions not according to the way you're supposed to answer the questions, you're losing your fucking contract.
Sure.
You're
absolutely.
So at the end of the day, the IFBB, whoever, again, they don't, the NFL, Nike, big corporations don't want any negative attention drawn to their brand. So they're like, shut the fuck up, answer the question the way we want to answer the question, or don't say nothing at all. But then you got a knucklehead like this guy comes on, who I don't even know who the hell that guy is, and sitting here talking about shit. Again, it goes back to what Jeremy said earlier. Okay, we're not putting this on TV because kids, if we put it on TV, kids can be like, how do I get that big? Oh, well, you got to use steroids. Nobody wants to be affiliated with that shit. Nobody.
Nobody, yeah.
Remember, he no longer, God rest his soul. But Rick Piazza was giving teenage kids, just use steroids, use growth hormones. The worst advice you can ever give a kid, and he was the guy out there on the front lines talking about that shit, which was ridiculous. What makes people like, here's the thing. People have to understand the NFL. The numbers for contact football for youth in high school are dropping. Why? We're dropping past tense. Why? Because of CTE and concussions. And parents were scared to put their kids on the field because of this whole thing that came out with concussions in NFL. So what did NFL do? They started redesigning helmets. They created flag football, which is huge now. They're not stupid. They created a diversion of like, how do we fix this? When I coached youth football at the beginning of the year, you had a guy that came in and did a concussion test at the beginning of the season and then went at the end of the season. And the NFL implemented that. Not only did they do that, they start changing helmets and equipment. Now you have flag football and incorporated into the NFL, which has made it even bigger. That's what you have to do. You have to be a very creative person to understand how do you create a diversion from the steroids aspect of the sport to create a more positive look to your sport than what you have right now. And that's what the IFBB and the NPC doesn't do.
And they need to do it. They need to do exactly the same thing. The supplement companies, it's like, okay, if you decide to just cavalierly say, like how many people did at the Olympia with Kenny, that they said, oh yeah, nobody's natural. Oh yeah, everybody's gear. I know a lot of people do. That's tantamount. I mean, Kenny KO has almost 1 million followers. So when every person did that and he posted it on his channel, it's basically saying, hey everybody, I just want you to know that I'm engaged in ongoing illegal criminal activity, and I know a whole lot of other people who are too.
And here's
And
the
they
funny
and they and they said that in front of 1 million people.
and here's the funny
How
thing,
fucking
Jeremy.
crazy is that?
Think about this, Jeremy. Who is one of the main sponsors for the Olympia? Titan Medical. And the
Right,
difference
right,
between Titan
exactly.
Medical is they're just legal. It's a legalized way of getting it. That's the only
Yeah,
difference.
because remember it was that whole thing when Barry Bonds and the thing with baseball.
Yeah.
Vincent Conte, he got busted. I think he was in jail for like 4 or 5 years for that. And now it's
Well,
still
Jose
running.
Canseco screwed that up for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's why I say with increased popularity comes increased scrutiny.
Yes.
In the eye of BB and the PC know that, because if they really did like a hardcore expose, they're going to be the ones in front of Capitol Hill. They're the ones who are going to be there with the Senate hearings, and they're the ones who are going to have to be answering the tough questions, and they don't want that. They don't want that at all.
And I know you guys, you probably, Jeremy, know this more than I do, because like I said, I was, basically clueless when it came to bodybuilding. Remember, it was in '92 or '91 when the IFBB said at the Olympia that was the first year they tested for diuretics, and the guys came out looking horrible, and some guys failed, some guys passed, and then after that they're like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. And I think it was the 90s, somewhere in the early 90s, where they did this because they were getting scrutinized about it. So they decided to do that, but guys didn't look good, and they're like, screw this crap. We're not doing that anymore. We're just going to go back to, doing what we do, and it is what it is. And, that's why, I mean, think about it. Think about it this way, guys. If all the guys of my friends who just passed away in the last 5 years, George, Cedric, Sean, amongst Dallas, amongst under, can you imagine if that shit was mainstream news? And what kind of amongst all the other athletes that we've been seeing dying in the sport, and not saying it's because of steroids, but because it's affiliated with the sports, how much more scrutiny would the sport get? So I think they kind of stay in the shadows, because if people only knew of all these athletes who were dying. Like, imagine if this was happening. Like, think about it when CTE came out. They made a movie about the shit, and it became worldwide news. I was one of those guys. I retired from concussions because I just wasn't the same. So can you imagine if they had to deal with this shit on that level? Like, okay, now we're dealing with steroids. How do you condone the sports that have people dying
Right, exactly.
It's supposedly dying from steroids, and it's just unhealthy. And at the end of the day, let's think about it. The risk versus the reward is not worth it. At the end of the day, it's not. Everybody who wants to chase after these pro cards want to sit here and say they don't understand what getting a pro card means. It means you're paying an extra $275 a year, and there's no guarantee that you're going to make any money at the sport. That's all. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Here we got a comment here. This is from War 2000. Says that's fear that general people who don't understand the sport of bodybuilding, they immediately assume the worst of the sport because they claim that they use steroids to get big and muscly. And yet, we talk about deaths in sports. There's more deaths in boxing. Yes. Men have died in the ring. Remember years ago, Boom Boom Mancini, he beat a man. He killed a man in the ring, and he had to retire after that. But still, boxing still goes on, even though they put in sanctions and this and that and rules. Used to be back in the day, a championship fight was 15 rounds. Now cut it down to 12. Just a regular fight was 12 rounds, cut it down to 10. You have the gloves that got heavier. You have one sport that's bare knuckle, but they don't have there. I think it's like 2 to 3 minutes. I think 2 minutes. For women and 3 minutes for the men, and still the rules for that sport. They are a bit flexible, but still it's pretty much the same. Here we got here. This is from Kizno Journey 84. He says, plus considering the decrease in attention span in the West, instant gratification, YouTube shorts are valued over long videos. BB is a lifestyle that requires dedication, not microwave results. Yeah, because I often say this: a lot of young people like things fresh and hot. They want it then and now, and most people
More
just
is
don't have the
not better.
patience.
More is
Yeah,
not.
yeah, it's about a process. We talk about this. Here we have a comment. This is from Warrior. It says, what people don't fully know is bodybuilding is much more than pads. It's hard work of training and dieting, extra hours of sleep, resting, a specific process that athletes do not just steroids. And this is a comment also from Warrior. Says, EchoQuest, fuck, what the hell? Nah, he says, shit, I know damn well a sane, rational person ain't injecting nothing from any land animal in their body. Well, it's
You
happening.
want to bet?
You want to
It's
bet?
happening.
You want to bet on that?
You want to
I'll
bet?
bet even money on that one.
I bet all my money in my bank account on that shit.
Damn straight.
You realize you do have an IFBB Pro on your show, right?
Yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah.
Not to put my business out there, but fuck.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember who was it. There was I think it was over in RX Muscle. I think this was John Romano.
Yep.
Was interviewing somebody, and I'm not exactly sure who the woman was. It was a female bodybuilder, but then it was like they were asking questions on gear, and I don't know if it was equipoise or if it was some other horse-related medication. And they said, okay, well, this particular medication has a horse listed on the label. Immediately, the female bodybuilder said, I think it was may have very well have been equipoise, but then she said, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Because the second he mentioned it, she knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
She knew exactly what it was. I mean, right there is some evidence that, hey, she may be taking this shit. Yeah. I mean, people, good grief.
Yeah.
I mean, back in ancient times, hell, you were like donkey piss was being prescribed with people to improve your virility or something like that. So that goes back a long time.
Yeah.
Well, and what people have to understand, when it comes to PEDs, it's a, it's like I hear so many people sit there and say, oh, if I was only taking what he was taking, I'm like, bullshit. It's, that's a precursor for everybody out there. It's a fucking precursor. The diet is for one. The training is for two. And again, like I've heard guys from the 90s, and I'll always reference to the guys in the 90s because they're way better athletes than we are in this era. Way better. More is not better. Less is better. When I sat down with Flex Wheeler, when I sat down with Charles Glass, two of the cornerstones of this sport, and got an understanding, because again, remember guys, I had no idea going to the sport what I was doing, what was going on. I didn't start using gear till very late in my career, this, that, and other. Just being honest, I don't tell anybody I'm natural because it's just bullshit. But at the end of the fucking day, it wasn't a whole bunch of stuff. Like Sean Ray said it to me, he goes, you little spoiled ass fucking bodybuilders these days, you got real prep companies. We had to make our own food. We know exactly what's going on in our bodies. We didn't have skills. We were just eating food. If you ask Jay Cutler, if you ask Sean Ray, if you ask Flex Wheeler, if you ask Kevin LeBron, if you ask Dorian Yates and all these guys, what they did is not what the guys are doing this era. But guess what? Those guys are still around. Mm-hmm. Those guys are still around because they understood the Branch Warrens and all these guys understood there was time. And the one person I can say that gets the bigger picture is our new champion. He understands. He'll tell you. He's like, when I go off, I feel like shit. I'm tired. My sex drive, this, that, and other. Because he understands that when he trained with Milos, that's how those guys did it in the 90s versus the guys that are doing in this area. Everybody thinks more is better, and it's not. And everybody thinks that because you do this, men or women, it makes you a better athlete. And I remember when I did Generation R, and Ben Pawlowski, who I competed against, is a good friend of mine for many years, that competed from Canada, says, I can give you the same shit that I take, and you'll never look like me because you're not willing to train like me. Ronnie Coleman says everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to eat all this goddamn food, lift all this heavy ass weight, do all this cardio, and do all the things it takes to actually be a bodybuilder. They think it's about the drugs, and it's not.
Right. And why do they think that? Why is it that for 40 years The meat, I keep hammering this nail in, but it is the truth. The reason why people automatically associate bodybuilding with steroids is the media.
Yep.
Has flat out programmed them to think this way.
Yep.
Because you go back, you go back, look at any year, the TV shows that have come out with bodybuilding. One of the things that's covered every single damn time is steroids. So people have been flat out programmed to think this way about bodybuilding for the last 40 years. That's the other thing that you have to circumvent if you want it to be less extreme. Is that you have to do a massive education program, like what you're talking about, Keith, is to show, no, you have to talk about the training, you have to talk about the dieting. I mean, it's like you said, if all you do is shoot yourself up or pop a pill, you're never going to look like Keith. You're not going to look like anybody.
It's like C-Bump said, there's more guys in the gym using more shit than me, but they don't look anything like me because there's more to it than just doing that.
Right.
Why they don't push natural bodybuilding then? Like, because I mean it ain't 100%, but majority of the competitors they're not supposed to use, and they get that drug test.
Because
I'm just asking.
It's the subject that we're talking about. Nobody wants to see a normal, everybody wants to see the freaks. Especially when it comes to everybody wants to see the freaks. And they did that, I think in the 90s, like I said, with the diuretic aspect of things. Nobody wants to see that. They want to see the freaks. They want to see the craziness, the something that is unobtainable, but they think that's attainable. They want to see that. They don't want to see, some natural guy going on stage. They don't want to see that. I mean, and that's just our society, and this sport. It's like, but they do it like the IFBB and the NPC, like they just had the Weider championships and people got pro cards there. They do it because they understand there is a market for athletes that don't, because it is a personal decision. It's a choice. When I read the article about Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, Dorian Yates, and Flex Wheeler, when they started using gear, they said when their bodies were maxed out from training naturally, and that's when they were in AAU, then and this was I think maybe when they were 21, 22, 23, when they finally decided that they had to go to the dark side, because in order to compete in this sport at this level, you ain't got no choice. Yeah, you can compete at natural, but the money ain't the same. The notoriety ain't the same. It's just not. And that's just facts.
It just don't make sense.
It
just don't Go ahead.
Yeah. Unfortunately, KLA, I'm just going to have to agree. I have to agree with Keith, because I mean, the money. I mean, this is one of the oldest rules in business: is people are going to follow where the money is going.
Yep.
And the money is coming from the fan base, the people who are buying the tickets, the people who are buying the supplements and that sort of thing, and the people have spoken. I mean, no, I'm not. I'll just give an example here. The OCB. I mean, the World Championships versus that and the IFBB NPC. The Olympia weekend was held in a Las Vegas casino, and it was held with a huge splashy production. That's not cheap.
Nope.
But then you look at the OCB. Where did they have their World Championship? A community college theater.
No, but
I'm not. And the reason being is, and the reason being is because the money's not there, because the people are watching it.
I understand that. I understand. I'm not against what y'all saying. I'm just saying that if the enhanced bodybuilding has a stigma, I mean, then why is it the way it is? Like, why people kind of perceive it wrong, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I do. I get it, but the thing is, getting back to what we were saying about society, even your natties, even your genuine, honest to God natties, never touched gear in their lives. Nevertheless, you'll have people come up to them and say, "Hey, what are you on? What are you taking?" Because the assumption is bodybuilding automatically equals steroids, whether you're natty or not. And I don't like that either. Just so you know, KLA, I don't like that either. I think the natties should be getting some far away more variety. But the people, the fan base, just like Keith has said, they've spoken. They're not putting their money to the natties. They're going with the freaks.
And
it's just the way it is.
Here's a prime example.
Like President,
and I'll leave that. I was doing a party at my bar this weekend. This asshole guy comes up. Mind you, I'm smaller than I am because it's off season, and it's off season, so I take time off of the things I do and the things I use. He looks at me and he says, without even knowing me, looks at me and says, it's no way you can look like that naturally. And I'm like, and I looked at him, I said, well, why not? So your presumption, because I'm in shape and I'm a big guy, is naturally you can't look like this because you have to be using something. Because that's what our society is so presumptuous of. You can't just be in shape, but that's what they think. You can't be natural looking like that. Well, there's a lot of guys I know. One guy at my gym in particular who I respect, and he's a physique guy, looks amazing, and he's all natural. And I respect that. He's a physician assistant. He's all natural. But that's the way society looks. Because you're in shape, they automatically say, there's no way that you can look like that because you have to be running something, which is bullshit. And that's, and that's exactly what Germany was trying to say.
Yeah. Like, good example here, like, pull up these, like someone like Michaela Aycock. She is just, her physique is just freakish, but a lot of guys are a fan. A lot of people are fan of hers, guys, men, women, because she's just something different. And you know what? There's always going to be the pushback where they're telling you, like, we don't like the big freaky women, but you still come to the shows. You still follow these people on social media. And with the natural thing, because I think it's a bit more attainable, but still, like, that's why we had Nicole here, but something happened with her feed. Hoping she gives the feedback, especially be a natural competitor. It's a different look, but still, it takes them just as long, even more longer to develop size because you're not using, performance enhancers, not using steroids. I remember, I think someone told me that, I think it was one of the interviews, KL. KL does all interviews with the OCB girls. It'll take her 2 years just to get 7 pounds worth of muscle.
Yep.
Compared to if you are a competitor in the NPC or the IFBB. And then natural competitors who now, because we saw that the Manning family is planning on trying to get more natural, like you're doing a natural pro qualifier at the Pittsburgh Pro. You have the Ben Weeder natural show, which was also a pro qualifier. And they want to get, and you're seeing people like more natural competitors coming in. Just saw also on the list for the season is that they say that add women's bodybuilding and men's bodybuilding to the Ben Weeder natural show. Right. Here's the problem with that. Most of those women are just going to look like either like physique competitors or fit competitors.
Yep.
And if you do with the men, those guys are going to look more like probably like either men's physique or men classic. So that's going to be a different look to pull off naturally.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I get it, but I just don't understand of it, of the enhance. It's like it's a niche and it's not like popularized. People like it more than the natural. I get it. It takes natural long to build muscle, all that stuff. It's just that the enhanced bodybuilding, it has a lot of stigma, especially with the steroids. It's a lot of drug use. Like, let's keep it real. Like, I mean, the way this dude was using the thing with that horses use, like, people see that, they're gonna flip out, and especially with the that KO character. I don't blame him. It's the people that answer the questions.
Right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
But here's the thing, guys. Think about this. When was baseball at its all-time most popular in history?
Doing the
Sammy Silver and Tom McGuire.
When Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, and Mark McGuire were hitting all those home runs, and guess what they're all associated with?
Steroids.
And where did they all end up? In front of the U.S. Senate.
Exactly, but
giving testimony.
But before that, the world had their eyes on these guys because they were. And here's the thing: at the end of the day, I look at it this way: they can take PEDs all the fuck they want. It may give them a little bit more power, and I can tell you, I do some of the same things, but I ain't never gonna fucking hit. I can't hit a fucking home run like these guys can or whatever. And that's where it comes back to. Was it just the PEDs? No, you still had to have a skill set. You still had to have an eye on the ball. I don't think any steroids, may give them more power, but didn't give them the hand and eye coordination to hit those fucking home runs. That's at the end of the day. So when people sit there and say, "Oh, if I took what Keith was taking, I would look like him." No, it's more to it than that. It's hard work, dedication, and that's a precursor. And again, at the end of the day, do I agree with them? I don't know, because baseball seasons are long. They're the longest season. That's why their contracts are guaranteed. And these guys were getting older and understood. How do I give myself an edge? And remember, the guy once asked the question, if you're an Olympic athlete and I give you one shot to win a medal, would you do it? They say yes. So these guys are getting an opportunity that says, it's the fountain of youth. I can get a little bit bigger, stronger, and faster doing this. And Olympic athletes do it all the time in track and field and other sports as well. That's why they do it. If they are not getting an edge on doing this, not only in bodybuilding, but in other sports, they wouldn't do it. But it creates an edge, and that's why athletes do it, for that very reason. Now, you can't just give a regular athlete, a subpar athlete this. These athletes that are taking it are elite athletes who understand, how do I make myself even better? And again, what did I say earlier? Sean, Dorian, Kevin, and Flex all said, when I maxed my body out naturally and couldn't go any further, then I started using PEDs.
I think what is happening, as I mentioned this before, I think with the younger generation, you're having a paradigm shift away from that.
Yeah.
Because that to me, when it comes to this stuff, is that I think that's the wisest advice. Go balls to the wall in the gym, be a meticulous maniac in the kitchen naturally. Push yourself to your absolute maximum natural potential, and then, and only then, once you reach that point, then you should even consider taking the gear. But even then, check yourself and realize, hey, this stuff has the ability to radically affect your physique, if not kill you.
Well,
if you do this wrong.
There was a guy.
I mean, even then, you got to realize that going in. But now with the younger generation, I've seen like 17-year-old girls who were even posting videos of them shooting up.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, when did you start? 16, 15? Because the amount of muscle that's on this girl, it's like I'm asking, when did you start? 16, 15, 14? It's like instead of it being fine tuning, which is what the older generation did, is first build the engine, then fine tune it. Now the younger generation, they want a NOS system before they've even built the engine.
They want
what they want
down instead of putting in the work. That's
right.
And that leads to all you guys. That leads to, George, you had a show many episodes ago, because you had so many, about how do you get these younger generation of athletes to come into women's bodybuilding? Well, they don't want to work as hard as the old heads, I would call them. Like, the ones that, think about it. The average age of the pro women bodybuilders right now is what, about 35, 40? The average, the ones that are in it right now, about 35, 40, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
That's it. But they had, that's like comparing the guys in the 90s. They were putting in the work, the body of work. All these athletes, these young athletes that I see, and social media don't happen with the TikTok and the bullshit workouts. Like Arnold said, lift some fucking weights. Weights are weights. Now you want to create all these different workouts and all this stuff. Dorian will tell you. Flex will tell you. Charles will tell you. All the legendary bodies, Ronnie will tell you. Just lift weights and work your ass off. But these young athletes, they want to take shortcuts, and that's the problem with our society today. And that's the reason why you don't see the women bodybuilders, in the women physique competitors, the numbers starting to get stagnant because they understand it's too much fucking work. Bikini and wellness, and no disrespect to them and all, because I train them. I said, and I got told I have a bikini girl right now who's 20 years old that I'm training. I said, you will not look like, and she's all natural, you will not look like the rest of these little skinny ass broads walking around the gym. When you go on stage, you will smoke these girls because I'm training you different than what the perception of what bikini is truly is at the end of the day. Because I have a picture in my head of what I think bikini is, and she's all natural. She's 20 years old, great girl in shape. But at the end of the day, these girls, and a lot of girls I see on stage these days, because it's so easy and obtainable, just don't want to put in the work.
Yeah. Here, I got a comment from man Balls Deep. He says, "What up is salute. What up, salute to Balls Deep, as his usual. Chicago in here." Also, he says, "Smash the like button. Thank you, brother." He says, "Peace and blessings to the chat." And also, he says, "It's my birthday. Happy birthday, Balls Deep. Balls Deep. He's been out here. This is one of
my see some strippers, Balls Deep."
No, he says this. He says, "I prefer natural, but roided everybody's look better." I don't know. I might have this one lady who I started following. Maybe I'm hoping I get it on the future. She is a natural competitor, and her physique is just crazy. I mean,
is that Natalie? Natalie Hayes?
No, it's not Natalie Hayes.
That's Gangle.
Oh, Live Wizard. Wizard. Elizabeth Gangle. Yes. Or I think that's her last name. Yeah. Really impressive. Really impressive for a natty.
Yeah.
Really impressive physique.
For a natural competitor. I mean, maybe she had a little more size, but it's just it's crazy. She competes in OCB. She is I think she won the Yorton a while back in women's physique. I think she could have potential for the NPC.
She should try I think she should try the natties. I think she should try the natural shows. I think she'd do with that physique in a natural show. I think she'd do very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looked nice.
Yeah.
I think she'd do very well. Same thing with Natalie Hayes. She should consider doing more NPC natural shows. I think she'd do very, very well there as well.
I don't know if you guys remember a girl back in the day, Sarah Hayes, who competed.
Yeah, I remember.
Well,
I remember Sarah.
I trained Sarah, and Sarah was an all-natural competitor, and she did the NAMBF show, turned pro in that show. I trained her for, 2 or 3 years. She was a volleyball player. She was, and people understand sometimes it's a genetic makeup too. It's not just, gear. It's a genetic makeup. And I always tell people, I had 4 guys to train with me, and all of them were doing something. Let's just say that. They didn't all look like me because genetic makeups are genetic makeups at the end of the day. They were dieting, working as hard as I was, maybe a little bit less. But again, genetic makeup plays a big part of all this whole thing that we're talking about too. So it's just not, again, taking a pill or taking a shot. It's a whole bunch of other integral factors that goes into it. And at the end of the day, what I tell people, that's a goddamn personal decision. I don't sit here and say, tell my clients, you need to do this. You can ask me questions. I can give you advice. I can tell you what is what. But at the end of the day, what you decide to do as a human being is a personal decision.
Yeah, and the thing that just cracks me up is how many people I've seen who, when you do bring up genetics, they all laugh at that. Yeah. Or they all roll their eyes and say, "Oh yeah, right, genetics." Yeah. It's like, no. Go look up somatotype theory. Go look up ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph. Yes. If you want to know, this is not. So when people say the big deal of this is genetics, they're right.
Yes.
I mean, and it's just, but then you'll see people who again have been programmed to think this is all gear and this is all serious. Like, oh yeah, genetics, right? And they roll their eyes and they laugh at that. It's like, no, guys, there's actually established medical science behind this.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a joke, and it's not trying to avoid the whole gear issue, but it's there. It is part of it, and you're right. It is a big deal. Your genetic makeup matters.
You know, I wish they would just make. You know, I don't know if any of you guys, and if you haven't, it's a great show to watch. Chris Bell called Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Oh yeah, I watched it. I watched the movie. It's a good movie.
And Jeremy, am I right? It's a very enlightening show.
It is, because it's the side you never hear. Exactly. It's the other side. It's the other side you never ever hear about this.
Exactly.
And then and the people they interview, they're not just crackpots. These are like well-established medical, or these are well-established people in the medical profession that are coming out with this sort of thing. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a comment that says, this is from Working Says, Michaela Aycock is definitely not natural, but she has a body that most modes love, even though she obviously looks peds to increase muscle mass, but she still looks like a woman objectively. This is also from Warrior. It says, Bald Deets, Michaela Aycock has an amazing stomach vacuum pose that she's incorporates in her routines, but I respect her dedication as an athlete. And this is from Brock F5. I'm going to be honest, watching natty athletes compete in bodybuilding shows is boring. Not very exciting, in my opinion. Well, it's all depending, like I said, just showed Liz. She has amazing physique. Maybe just a little more size if you think about going to the NPC, because you know how the judges are. But she has a look that's very, she has a very feminine look to her, great muscle. She built it naturally. Would I put up against someone, like compare somebody to Sarah Vilgus? I know she'd get blowed out, but she could probably beat some women and probably even get Olympic qualification depending on the show.
The bikini probably, I would say, is born to watch all the women. It's just like 20 a set or something. I don't know.
But I think that's why they're now transitioning like the weeder, aspect of things, meaning like they're doing more natural shows. I mean, and they've always been, in the NBF and in the NBF and the whatever the other federation is.
OCB.
Yeah, OCB, and here lies the problem with that. Like, because I've had clients ask me, like, can I do that show? I'm like, absolutely. The problem is I just can't be there because the NPC doesn't allow us to be there. We will get in trouble, for being at those shows because it's not our federation. They said, and if you're going to be there, don't make sure nobody takes a picture and post it because, remember the guy, I think, was it last year's Olympia that got, qualified for Olympia, but was at a different federation show and they took his qualification away from him.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't they pass though that memo? I'm trying to remember the year that they did because they lost that lawsuit that says, "Hey, you are able." And I don't know if this is IFBB, but I think it's NPC. But they did come out with a memo and they said, "Yeah, you actually can go to all of those." Yeah, so I mean, even if they did, it's like if they get a good lawyer and they can point this out and show them the memo, it's like, yeah, you guys said that this was perfectly okay to do.
Yeah, because I've been I've talked to a friend of mine. She runs her own company and she's looking to reach out to maybe recruiting OCB natural competitors, especially to get more attention for her company. And I've seen I forgot who it was, but I remember it was an IFB pro who has a client. I believe it's posing. I think he's posing or I think it's a posing client. She was there at the show. I saw a picture of it and I sent it to her because I remember you mentioned about the whole thing about the other guy. And the thing is, if you're not there to compete, you're just there to root for a client or a friend, or I think even some businesses.
I think he was guest posing. I think that's what he was doing. He was guest posing.
So it was guest posing. Then he's maybe that
I can see getting in trouble for.
Yeah,
then money's involved.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't understand it because why would you get in trouble? You have to make money somehow. The IFBB and the NPC ain't giving us nothing. So how do you make money? So I shouldn't train national athletes who want to compete in